Hey, Moga Chief.
Yeah, Admiral?
I want your house.
My house? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
Why, I oughta...
Wow, what a rare turf war.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages,
Welcome one and all to another absolute extravaganza of fun. And today it's time to have just one more tiny little conversation about turf wars. We've talked about them loads in the past, you and I, reminisced about which are our favorites and which turf wars we wish were in the game that aren't. But today, now that months and months and months have passed, it's finally time to dig into the turf wars that people may not know about. The ones that are so unusual that unless you purposefully, forcefully make them happen, there's a good chance that you just won't see them. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the top 5 rare or unseen turf wars in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. And while some of you may have seen some of them, I doubt any of you will have encountered every single one of these turf wars in the wild. So strap in, buckle up, and prepare for an interesting conversation about one of the most interesting mechanics in the 5th generation of Monster Hunter.
Number 5. Brekkie Dios versus Zenogur.
Straight out of the gate, this is the least rare for a reason. The only conditions that need to be met to cause this are to have the two of these monsters meet. However, due to Brekkie Dios being an Elder's Recess exclusive monster, and Zenogur hating the Elder's Recess, these two can only meet and have this turf war in the Guiding Lands, when both are on the map and prodded into the same zone. The result is this little tuffle. Zenogur makes a move at Brekkie's head, gets slammed to the ground a couple of times, then slaps Brekkie across the face. Pretty standard stuff, no lightning unfortunately, no slime unfortunately, but hey, at least they do have a turf war with each other, right? The one caveat to the rarity of this one is that Stygian Zenogur can spawn in the Elder's Recess and has the same one. But trust me, from this point they just get rarer and rarer.
Number 4.
I'm not in the mood.
Shrieking Legianna versus Nightshade Palumu.
And here's where things get a little bit odd. This one is so rare that it doesn't exist. Technically. That's right, it's just not there unless you force it to be there. Sort of. It's a bug. I am almost certain in saying that it is a bug. So these creatures can meet in the Guiding Lands under relatively normal conditions. Neither are elders or particularly rare, so it isn't crazy hard to make them both appear here. However, after a pretty vast amount of trying by a user who goes by Sergio1992, it appears that Shrieking Legianna just will not have a turf war with either of the two Palumus in the Guiding Lands for whatever reason. He just won't. He refuses to. If, however, you put Shrieking Legianna into the arena with a Nightshade Palumu, you get slightly different results. The reused animation turf war of base Legianna with Nightshade, sure, that's what it is, but it is there. The turf war exists, they can do it. It's confirmed actually a part of the game, and yet it doesn't happen normally. These creatures don't have an actual arena quest together, so this doesn't make sense, and they don't appear on the same maps out on expeditions, so the only regular way to see these two monsters together is in the Guiding Lands, except for whatever reason, there is a bug that stops them from having the turf war that they have in this zone. They have a turf war, but they can't have the turf war in the only zone that they can actually meet within the game. They only do it in one exceedingly specific place that you have to literally mod a quest to get them there. But given that this is a bug and not intended, this one will take a backseat up here at number 4, even though it is pretty rare.
Number 3.
Your turn, bud.
Mater, I can't. I don't even have a horn.
Regen versus Hornless Kieran.
And here is where things start to get a little bit spicy. Rajang and Kieran have a turf war in Iceborne, and I praised it as being one of my favorites in the entire game, and for good reason. It matches the cutscene perfectly. He literally breaks off the Kieran's horn, like a full-on part break. He snaps the Kieran's horn off. The Kieran is sad, Rajang eats the horn and powers up. But what happens when Kieran doesn't have a horn anymore? Well, that doesn't stop Rajang from being angry theory, but nothing really does, to be honest. He goes in for the grapple, realizes that there is no tasty treat at the end of the rainbow, and just slams Kieran headfirst to the ground, yelling in anger, which is pretty brutal, you know, as opposed to snapping off its literal horn. Okay, they're always pretty brutal together, I get it. This one is interesting, because it further establishes the pecking order of these two specific creatures, being one of the only confirmed instances of a non-Elder Dragon consistently besting an Elder Dragon in combat. By this point, all in-lore and in-universe examples between these two have seen a Rajang being able to completely overpower a Kirin in a fight and force the Kirin to have to run away. Not like both of them take loads of damage but survive to fight another day. No, Rajang is the clear victor, the clear alpha between the two of them, and Kirin runs for the hills. This specifically is one of the points that makes me sad that Arashi Kirin was never added to the game, because that would have been hilarious. Imagine if Rajang tries to grab that horn and snap it. He would get absolutely messed up. He is super weak to ice, so in theory an Arashi Kirin and Rajang turf war would go way differently. But for now, horn or not, base Kirin is irrefutably a little bit weaker than Rajang.
Number 2.
I'm all about the elevation.
Glaviness versus Rathalos 2. Electric Boogaloo.
And many people have seen the original version of this turf war where Glavinus is the technical winner. Wrath fights from the air, Glaf pulls him down and slashes at him with his tail. That's the standard one. But did you know that Rathalos can win this too? That's right, but this one is a little special in what triggers it. It's not like it's 50-50 or anything like that. In 90% of the areas in the game that these two creatures meet, they'll do the first turf war. The exception is the higher elevation areas of specifically the Ancient Forest, and not the Guiding Lands, specifically the Ancient Forest, as soon as you start climbing the main tree itself. Once you're here in a higher area with more airspace, the game considers Rathalos to be at a full advantage in his home turf. No, that wasn't funny. Well, this is shown to us by giving us the animation of the Anjanath and Rathalos turf war. That's right, when in this zone, Rathalos literally treats Glavinus like an Anjanath. The fire breath to help him made very little sense against Anjanath, a fire monster. But at least Anjanath still has like fleshy scaled bits and fur that can be burned. The fiery breath against Glavinus though, that I highly doubt that actually helped Rathalos in any way, shape, or form, unless they're trying to cut off his tail. Back on track then, this one is just super odd. They clearly put a fair amount of thought into it, given that this pairing has multiple outcomes, triggered by being in specific areas. But I don't get why the second turf war has to just be a carbon copy of the Rathalos Anjanath turf war. Surely if you're going to go to the trouble of giving them a second turf war this unique, with these types of rare conditions to start it, you'd actually, you know, make it a unique turf war. I don't know. I still love that it's there, and it definitely is rare. But I just wish it was a little bit more than it is.
Number 1.
They're angry and confused because we're angry and confused.
Savage Deviljho versus Furious Rajang.
And here is where we get to the point of things that are literally impossible to make happen within the regular constraints of the game. And I'm not just being a millennial using the word literally to fill a gap. I mean literally. These creatures will not, under any circumstances, meet in a quest that is in Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Not a quest, not an investigation, which is randomized. It cannot happen unless you have mods installed, because of the way that Furious Rajang works. But if you put them in an arena together, well, you might guess, magic happens. And by magic, I mean a turf war. And by a turf war, I mean the exact same turf war that regular Rajang has with Savage Deviljho. But hey, you can't blame us for trying. That said, given that Furious Rajang is considered a different creature to base Rajang, this is technically a different turf war in the coding of the game, even if the animation is the same. Therefore making this turf war actually incredibly rare. In fact, almost impossibly rare, unless you literally alter the files of the game a little. So, you know, yeah, I hope you guys found this full discussion as interesting as I have. I love finding little nuggets like these, looking into the deep little details of the game. It really lets a bit more of the personality shine, lifts the curtain a bit to look at the cogs running the machine that is Monster Hunter itself. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been the top 5 rare or unseen turf wars in all of Iceborne. Have you seen any of these in the field yourself? Which of these is the most interesting to you? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love. So let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the kingdom Animalia. Rage, Continent, Hollow, we're all here talking about the things you want to hear. So if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.